Armani Communist Baba. We would have liked to keep our prices lower, but meat prices doubled this year, and it's not just meat prices, as you all know. There's unreliable increase in price of many items. Despite this, we would not lower the quality. We would not sell a product we did not like to eat to someone else. Anyway, yeah, this is the fucking institution, and I'm stoked to go visit it. All right, we're not gonna check the mini tab right now. Let's get to the fucking news. All right, as I was saying, Joseph Robinette Brandon, ladies and gentlemen, Joseph Robinette Brandon has offered a blanket pardon to his son, Hunter Biden. Let's get started on the story.
Decision to issue a blanket pardon for his son, Hunter, a reversal from promises he made during the campaign. Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce starts us off. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, George. Well, this is something that President Biden and this White House were adamant that he would not do. But this morning, with just weeks left in office, the president is now protecting his only living son with a sweeping pardon. Overnight, a sudden reversal. President Biden issuing a full and unconditional pardon of his son Hunter, ending a legal saga that the president now says was politically motivated. Biden had long promised he would not interfere with his son's cases, telling our David Muir in June such a pardon was not an option.
Will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
But now Biden says he believes his son was selectively and unfairly prosecuted, writing in a statement, no reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong. The president accusing his political opponents of trying to break Hunter, who has been sober now for over 5 years, saying in trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough.
I'm extremely proud of my son, Hunter. He has overcome an addiction. He's one of the brightest, most decent men I know.
Hunter Biden was convicted in June on federal gun charges for lying on a federal form about his drug addiction when he bought this Colt revolver in 2018. And in September, he pleaded guilty in a last-minute deal to 9 tax-related charges, accused of avoiding paying $1.4 million in taxes while living lavishly, taxes he had since paid back. He was scheduled to be sentenced later this month in each case, potentially facing more than a decade in prison. But now Hunter, seen with his father over this past holiday weekend, will...
So a lot of this story, I mean, this story is hilarious for every part of it, okay? Number one, was Hunter Biden prosecuted for political purposes? Absolutely, okay? He was. Because, and I said this back then as well, the things that he was prosecuted for are things that Republicans like, okay? Tax evasion and also gun ownership, any sort of hurdles against gun ownership. Republicans hate that shit. So ideologically, Hunter Biden was doing stuff that Republicans love to do. Lying on a fucking gun ownership form, only to find out that, they were lying. He was lying on the gun ownership form later because he stupidly wrote it in a book that he was on crack cocaine in the time of his purchase of a gun. All that stuff is hilarious. Okay, this is exactly the type of shit that like Republicans would yell at the Democrats for over lawfare. Having said that, Biden spent years saying, "Oh, I'm not going to touch the Justice Department. I'm not going to do politics in the Justice Department. I'm not going to do that. Let it run its course. Let it run its course." First, he tried to get first the DOJ gave a sweetheart plea deal to Hunter Biden. The Republicans caught wind of that, got very mad, and then made it a much larger story. Then an independent investigation was conducted and found him guilty again. Okay? They tanked the sweetheart plea deal, okay, which is an understandable thing that you would have gotten if you were a wealthy person in a position of power. It's inappropriate, but it is the way it is in the United States of America for the most part, for every fucking wealthy person, especially wealthy individuals who are directly related to power. Having said that, however, Joe Biden and the Democratic Party loves institutions, norms, civility, and defending the sanctity of these institutions. So for them to turn around and for Biden to turn around and like openly go against this is fantastic. It's hilarious. The only thing that is frustrating to me about this entire process is like, why won't they drop institutional norms for anything good? Why does it always have to be purely to like defend your fucking son? I don't give a shit about Hunter Biden going to jail or not going to jail. I don't care. You will never be able to convince me that this is like a gross misuse of the federal authorities. Like, it's just so fucking annoying. I want the Democrats to operate like this, but for good shit, not for pure selfish reasons. Okay? But what makes it even funnier is that these guys love hypocrisy baiting while being institution defenders. And the irony here is that they openly showed once again that they don't give a fuck. And Joe Biden's statement on it was, this is lawfare. This is political. This is like bullshit. You know who else said that? Donald Trump. Donald Trump. You can't fucking say that while you spent the last couple of years hunting Donald Trump, and the only thing you were able to lock him down on was like paying hush money to a porn star that he fucked with a misuse of campaign funds. And you couldn't even get him on that. You got his lawyer on that. So what did you get him on? You got Donald Trump on changing you got him on like paperwork. Okay? That's the only thing you were able to get him on, paperwork. All of a sudden, this is Trump world, is Trump universe. If I'm Donald Trump, I'm celebrating. I'm throwing up numbers on the board, because not only does this show that the Democrats don't care about norms, institutions, blah, 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 all this shit, they also recognize the reality of lawfare. So all of a sudden, this is like a perfect silver platter opportunity for Donald Trump to turn around and be like, well, you see, I told you it was lawfare. They also recognize it when it happens to them. It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, before people say, oh, well, Hasan, Donald Trump did this. Yeah, I know, dude. I know he did. I don't even give a shit that, one, I don't give a shit that Joe Biden did this. I can't stress this enough. Of course he was going to do this. Get the fuck out of here. Okay? Number two, I do give a shit that Donald Trump did it. Okay? Because the stuff that Donald Trump did this for, the pardon powers that he used, was for like fucking murderers. Okay? For people who have done unimaginably bad things. Like, he specifically went in and pushed the military to no longer prosecute a war criminal. You know how hard it is for the Marines or for the American military to go, yeah, this guy was a little bit too crazy. You know how hard that is with Eddie Gallagher? You know how hard it is for the American military to go, yeah, this one guy may be a little bit too crazy. His own unit narked on him. His own unit, Eddie Gallagher, his own unit snitched on him. And that is after they openly said they were fucking up his sights, his scopes on his weapons, so he couldn't snipe children. Donald Trump saw that process and went, you got to stop that. That's a hero right there. You're going to give him his medals back. Think about how fucking insane that is. Okay. Anyway, so there are people that I never really gave a shit that Trump used his pardon power on. And I even said was good, you know, getting ASAP Rocky out of jail. Good stuff. You know, I guess pardoning Kodak Black is interesting. You know, I don't care about it too much. There's already far too many people. That are in prison to begin with. Okay. But the notion that this is a you know, I just don't know. I don't know why like liberals are so stupid. That's what I got to say on this. Even Republicans have basically looked at the situation. And we're like, great, I'm glad that Biden did this. Of course he was going to do this. It's his son. And, you know, now no one can claim that we're being ridiculous when we want to pardon the January 6ers. And to be fair, yeah, I mean, who cares if the January 6ers get pardoned? Okay, I don't give a shit. Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, Dinesh D'Souza, who was pardoned by Donald Trump, is complaining about Hunter Biden being pardoned. That's also funny. This is a hilarious situation across the board. Okay. No one is above the law except my son Hunter, says Dinesh D'Souza. Dinesh D'Souza was pardoned by Donald Trump. Dinesh D'Souza's criminal trial was also so funny because it was like, he is the one guy that so openly and so obviously was compromised. And in the way that he in the way that he carried himself. He's the one guy that went to jail for campaign finance laws. Okay, he did straw donations for his friend. What is this? He did straw donations. Dinesh D'Souza did straw donations for his school friend. Okay, who still lost by like 75 points, and it was fucking spectacular because you don't need to do straw donations in America. You just use super PACs. And yet this dumb fuck still tried to do straw donations, and he went to jail for it. And he did a whole documentary about it. Also today, the mules were fake. My bad. Oh my God. Dinesh D'Souza also apologized for the two. Oh, what a fucking loser. All right. I'm all over the place right now. My ADHD is going out of control. Let's continue with this.
None of that. The president's pardon is sweeping, covering not just those charges, but any uncharged crimes between 2014 and 2024.
That blanket pardon is pretty crazy, by the way. It goes hard. It's like Hunter Biden until last night had the opportunity to do more crimes, and he would be free of federal prosecution, which is crazy. In my opinion, that's just... So it doesn't annoy you that the son of the author of the crime bill, who was responsible for destroying the lives of so many black Americans, gets to walk free of the same crime? No, it doesn't. I mean, everything that Biden does annoys me. I hate him, but it doesn't annoy me beyond like... I don't know. It doesn't annoy me beyond the fact that it's just like, who gives a shit? He had 24 hours to assassinate Trump and he failed. Yeah, because it's not the... It's like... I don't think anybody should be going to jail for some of the fucking crimes that Hunter Biden could have potentially faced criminal penalties over. Like tax evasion, it's completely unacceptable, right? Lying on your forms when you're purchasing a gun, also completely unacceptable. Having said that, however, these are both instances where there's a shit ton of lenience, especially in terms of like tax evasion is one of those crimes where it's like, if you get caught doing it, they come after you and they say, you have to pay this fee. And then that's it. You know what I mean? That's it. You fucking pay it back. You're like, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize this was the case. I'm paying it back, which is, exactly what he did, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you pay it back plus a penalty. It's just like complete fake outrage. The people that are like genuinely upset about this. I guess like the only thing I'm upset about it is that like Democrats don't use this kind of like Democrats don't use this kind of like obvious grift and hypocrisy and abuse or the misuse of power that you have for anything good. And I despise that. Okay. I hate that they don't do that. It's very frustrating to me. And I wish they did it for like actually good things. He should do this for broad clemency. Like he should do that. He should do this. Hold on. 1 second.
For months, the president intentionally avoided commenting on the specifics of his son's cases, not wanting to give the appearance of interfering. Instead, stressing his support for Hunter as a father.
I love him, and he's on a straight and narrow, and he has been for a couple of years now, and I'm just so proud of him.
While at the White House, aides were emphatic that the president would not step in on his son's behalf.
We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no.
But now the president says, here's the truth. I believe in the justice system. But as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process, and it led to a miscarriage of justice. Adding, I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision. The about face comes just weeks before President-elect Donald Trump is set to take office. Trump has vowed retribution against his political opponents and has repeatedly bashed Hunter and the Biden family, accusing them without evidence of corruption.
President Biden clearly did not want to leave his son's fate in the hands of Trump's Justice Department. Now, in a statement and a post, Trump says the pardon is the abuse and miscarriage of justice here, while in a statement, his spokesman argues the president's move underscores Trump's claims that the Justice Department has been weaponized, saying, quote, that must be fixed, and saying that is what Trump intends to do when he returns to the White House. George.
Okay, Mary, thanks. Let's bring our chief legal analyst, Dan.
It's like, oh man, I can't believe the Justice Department is weaponized against you. That's crazy. That's crazy. I can't believe that happened. Also, now Trump can just like turn around and say, this is what has happened to me. That's a crazy thing to say. Plenty of evidence. Hunter was corrupt. Wait, what? No, Hunter was in direct violation of the law. The point is, this is the type of shit that like under normal circumstances, you would expect leniency over. And especially when it's like someone who is wealthy and powerful, they always get leniency over it. And the reality is, the reality of the matter is like, yeah, it is yet another instance of like the Republican Party very clearly creating drama surrounding it. As far as like Hunter's corruption goes, he did like basic nepotism shit in Burisma, if that's what you guys are talking about. He basically lied to the fucking Ukrainians about how much access he had to the government when he had no fucking real valid opportunity to influence the government at all. And his dad, literally, as the vice president, actually moved against him and against his position in Burisma. So much so that, like, you know, numerous investigations were conducted by the Republicans that wanted to make this a much larger fucking deal, and they couldn't. They openly recognized that they failed to even make any movement. It seems like you're defending the corruption of the Justice Department by acting like this isn't a disgusting display of corruption. No, it is. My point is, I'm of two different minds on this. Like, the one thing is, if you think this is the grossest fucking misuse of justice or whatever, it's not. Okay, under normal circumstances, like, I don't think anybody should be hit with the max penalty and be imprisoned for something like this. Okay, like, especially when they don't even have access to the gun anymore, you know, and they've already rehabilitated. Do you see what I'm saying? The reality is, you and I are on the same page on this. You also don't think all of those people who are unjustifiably put in prison should be there. And I agree with you. And I think Joe Biden should be like, hey, what I did for Hunter, I'm going to do for everybody else as well. That would be the just process in this circumstance. He'll never do that because he's a corrupt pussy. I think that would be sick if he was like, listen, there are a lot of people who are in prison for far too long when they shouldn't be. And I'm going to fucking pardon them as well. Happy Thanksgiving. Chatter before was right, though. This guy wrote the crime bill, but when the Justice Department's brutality is aimed at his own, it's not okay. No, I understand the inconsistency there. You're not wrong. I agree. Like, I agree. Nothing good will ever happen. And if racist and he still doesn't want his crime bill undone, even though it's a stain on his career, yeah. I don't disagree with you at all. You're 100% correct. The man who wrote the crime bill, who was the architect of the crime bill, which has been devastating for black and brown communities and poor people in general in this country, turns around and finds in his heart leniency and clemency for his own kin. All right. Oh, all of a sudden he's got it. Like, if you're pointing to that inconsistency, yeah, you're 100% right. Of course. The problem here is that it's not like no side of this is correct. You know what I mean? Like, you think Republicans actually care about the pure graft here? They care. They're like, oh, wait a minute. We got to make sure this dangerous criminal Hunter Biden needs to be fucking taken out of the streets. Like, no, they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit at all. I mean, even the Democrats don't give a shit. That's what's so crazy about it. Even the fucking Democrats don't give a shit. They dropped Trump's cases already because he's president now. Okay? So I guess they weren't wrong. I guess Trump wasn't wrong when he said, this is lawfare. You're only coming after me because I'm standing in the way, you know? Which is it? You can't say Trump is a fascist criminal monster, which I agree with, by the way, and is like a hilariously bad, hilariously incompetent criminal, okay? And so open about directly violating the law so frequently, but you can't actually point to that and then be like, yeah, but I guess he's president now, so it doesn't matter. He's rich, he's white, he's president. We can't do anything about it. Let's drop everything. It's so stupid. You're actively undermining any sort of argument that you had. Democrats in this past year and a half have basically gone back on every single position that they have maintained for the past 8 fucking years. Trump is a fascist, but we have to kiss the ring. Trump is corrupt, but we have to drop his charges. Okay? Turns out lawfare does exist. And it was actually lawfare that the Republicans were able to weaponize against my son, Hunter Biden, who's done nothing wrong. Trump is a racist for wanting to fucking build a border wall, but actually the border wall is good and we want to build it now. And Trump is a hypocrite for getting in the way of building that border wall. It's ridiculous. And then people yell at me when I say we have a fucking uniparty approach to so many of these issues. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I genuinely don't know what to say. Anyway, the most immediate effect I've seen about this is that Dem voters are just saying, I don't like it, but Trump is worse, lowering the bar even more. Like, I get where they're coming from too. Because for the Democrats, they're like, oh, finally, we get a W. They're wrong. They don't get a W at all. Okay? They don't get a W at all. Violate norms and institutions, violate institutional norms and violate the principle of civility for good shit and not for like your own personal your own personal interest. Okay? And this is, of course, after I have already celebrated freeing my man Hunter, because having a big cock and smoking crack should not be illegal, okay? That's right. Free him.
Abrams, we saw the president's words there, called it a miscarriage of justice, said Hunter was selectively and unfairly prosecuted. From a legal perspective, is that a good argument?
He has an argument, but he certainly has an argument with regard to the gun charge, right? There has never been another federal charge of someone charged under this set of facts, meaning the gun wasn't used in more than one crime, the person had no criminal record, the gun wasn't used.
Like, this is all valid, by the way. I mean, it is lawfare. But in the same vein that it is like Trump's rampant corruption and open corruption is also being weaponized against him in the same sense.
In a crime.
No, he didn't have his criminal record is spotless, because when you get caught with cocaine in your blood, but you're the son of like a senator, they don't do anything about it.
So that's the definition of selective prosecution.
Correct. You can definitely argue with regard to the gun charge. Now, the issue is that the gun charge got tacked on in connection with the plea agreement that initially happened and fell through. The tax cases is a little tougher. Yes, it's true that in a lot of cases, when someone doesn't pay their taxes, they're allowed to pay them back. And at worst, they just get a fine. It's also true that in certain cases, people get prosecuted for not paying their taxes. So it's a little squishier with regard to the tax charge as to whether this was clearly selective prosecution.
How about the idea this was a blanket pardon, protecting his son for anything that might have happened since 2014?
Well, look, that is certainly as sweeping as you can make it. And there is an argument that he could have done something much more limited, meaning granting him clemency. That would have meant the convictions stand, but with regard to a sentence, he doesn't get any jail time. There is no sentence. That's what clemency could have done. He didn't do that. He granted him pardon on the two charges, plus on anything he could conceivably prosecuted for.
Out of fear that he might be prosecuted.
Well, and because there are a lot of people on the right in particular who have been talking about a variety of crimes that they wish that Hunter Biden had been charged with, that he should have been charged with, et cetera. And I think that's the reason that one happened. But it's interesting when you hear the president's team, the president-elect's team, talk about the Department of Justice and weaponization. It's a little tough to say that because this Department of Justice is the department that went after Hunter Biden. So it's now the president stepping in to protect Hunter Biden from his Department of Justice. And I think it's an important point to remember in this context.
It is. Dan Abrams.
One other thing that I have to point to here is obviously like how openly he lied. Here's the 9-minute straight supercut of Biden regularly saying he would never fucking violate the law or go against the decisions of the DOJ.
Presidential promise to put the law before family.
I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Letting the world know that he will not wipe away the decision of 12 of his son's peers.
Was asked directly, and he has said he wouldn't pardon his son if he gets convicted.
Let's wait and see what happens if he loses.
Yeah, but he said it.
He's going to get pardoned by his dad. There's no question about that.
The president has ruled out pardoning his son.
Major commitment from the president, accepting the outcome of the trial and also pledging not to pardon his son.
So the challenge for him is really to continue to live up to his values when it was really personal, and he did that today.
It seems like a pretty normal, straightforward answer, but it takes new weight when we see what Trump is saying about the outcome of his trial, what we're hearing from other Republicans who say they don't accept the jury's verdict here in New York.
The contrast is profound. To sit there and say, well, I'm not going to intervene in the legal process, and I wouldn't pardon my son. One side, Democrats and Joe Biden protecting the justice system. And on the other, Republicans and Trump protecting Trump.
A current president of the United States has so much respect for the law that he has said he would not pardon his son. I mean, what again, it's all about the contrast.
President Biden saying, I will respect whatever this jury decides, versus
right.
Donald Trump after he was convicted on 34 counts, saying the entire system is rigged against him.
Their latest attack has been that Joe Biden has politicized and weaponized the DOJ, right? That was the whole argument around Donald Trump's conviction. And this week, of course, Hunter Biden was found guilty, and Joe Biden has very clearly said he would not pardon his son, he would not commute his sentence.
Scumbag move, but if I had a kid, I won't lie, I'd do the same thing. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it depends. If you're, like, obviously, if he was, like, found guilty of doing, like, serial killing or pedophilia or whatever, like, then, yeah, no, fuck you. You know, you do your time at that point. But the charges are minimal. The issue here is the hypocrisy is, like, tenfold, okay? And I'm going to go through it step by step. Number one, he lied and said he wasn't going to interfere in the DOJ, but he obviously ultimately did. Number two, he is responsible for hundreds of thousands of Americans getting worse penalties at the federal level, overall being the architect of the crime bill, okay? Incredibly reactionary towards crime, incredibly draconian. He is a responsible figure for America's 25% incarcerated population, right? He is almost singularly responsible for it. So those rules do not apply to his own son. Those rules only apply to random poor people, okay, regardless of their background. But especially, yes, America houses 25% of the planet's incarcerated population, despite making up only 4% of the planet's entire population. Okay, so that's it. That's number two. Number three, the ways in which he actually pardoned Hunter Biden and claiming that this was lawfare, which is, you know, technically true, right? Like, this was a political thing. The ways in which he went in to the pardon, the blanket pardon, saying this is lawfare, this is politics, and that's why I'm pardoning my son, also directly gives an out for so many of the Republican grievances. It basically confirms all the Republican grievances that Democrats are corrupt, they're criminal, they don't give a shit about the law, they act like they care about civility, they act like they care about impartiality, they act like they care about, like, preserving these institutions and their sanctity. They do not. And that's true, they don't, right? But last but not least, the most significant, as a matter of fact, rank hypocrisy here is not even on the virtues of violating institutional norms and giving Donald Trump a perfect opportunity, but the reality that Joe Biden has been violating the law, the Leahy law specifically, in his endless support and loyalty to the state of Israel for the past year and change, for the past, like, 14 months at this point. And the media has criticized them less for that than they have criticized them for this. In the past 24-hour news cycle, the media has yelled at Joe Biden for his hypocrisy and his violations of institutional norms in this Hunter Biden situation than they have for the past 12 months, 14 months over his direct violation of international human rights and American rules that dictate that you cannot give weapons to an ally that is violating human rights. Israel has done that, and we have consistently continued to give Israel weapons, unlimited amounts of weapons. Biden recently secured $680 million of weapons, or 280? Another fucking $600 million to Israel on his way out. He's still doing it. He did that literally fucking 5 days ago, despite the fact that there is countless amounts of evidence, not just from NGOs and international organs of justice, but also evidence directly from the State Department that shows Israel is violating human rights by refusing humanitarian aid to reach a civilian population that it is currently in a bombing campaign over, that is currently genociding. That, to me, is insane. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I feel like that is significant. That is infinitely more significant than, like, pardoning your own fucking son. And yet it is yet another glaringly obvious inconsistency in the way that our media operates. Another glaringly obvious inconsistency in the way that our State Department operates, in the way that Americans in positions of power interpret hypocrisy or violations of the rules. Biden has been a serial violator of the rules. What a fucking ridiculous, nonsensical position. That's why I couldn't believe it when, where is it? Nate Silver was like, this is my red line. Nate Silver came out immediately yesterday. I said, I discussed here how I voted for Harris despite feeling like the Democrats indulged in a lot of bad behavior that voters were rational to publish. After the White House lying about the Hunter pardon, I'm not sure how much more I can tolerate. I won't vote for any Democrat in 2028 that doesn't repudiate the pardon within 48 hours. To which I said, I like that for this liberal, genocide is not a red line. Pardoning Hunter Biden is. It blows my mind that there are people out there who are like, genocide I'm okay with, but pardoning your son, that's a step too far. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Yeah, liberals, I can excuse the genocide, but I draw the line at pardoning a low-level criminal. You can excuse the genocide. I don't understand it. I genuinely don't understand how your brain can be this fucking broken. How you can be this devoid of humanity. That to me is completely unacceptable. Like, that's your fucking deal breaker, dude. You are such a monstrous scumbag. Oh, Americans are so weird, dude. It's just like they're so selfish and they're so weird. Like, how do you look at so much death and so much destruction every single day and then turn around and go, yeah, that's fine. We got to do that. We have to do that. We have to let Israel rain hell upon undeserving civilian populations over and over again. But God forbid a president fucking pardons his son for some fucking low-level offenses, you know? So while on the one hand, while I understand the hypocrisy argument, especially not on terms of like lawfare, but especially because Biden himself is a person throughout his career that has advocated to institute harsher criminal penalties for low-level offenses in general, turning around and like pardoning his son is you know, obviously ridiculous, especially when it's not packaged with any sort of additional clemency. But the very fact that we are more hyper focused on this nonsensical shit and lose our minds over this is so silly. Like, it's just, I don't know.
Biden Justice Department has been politicized. That's the message this morning from not just Donald Trump, but from President Joe Biden himself. The president issuing a full and unconditional pardon to his son Hunter after repeatedly insisting in public that he wouldn't do it. And to defend his decision, the president adopted an argument that could have come straight out of Donald Trump's playbook. Blame your political opponents and claim unfair persecution. President Biden said this, quote, "The charges in his cases came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election." The president adding, quote, "No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son. And that is wrong," end quote. President Biden pardoning his son not just for the gun crimes for which he was convicted and not just for the tax crimes for which he pled guilty. Instead, Biden gave his son an extraordinarily sweeping pardon for any and all crimes he committed, may have committed, or even merely been involved in at any point in the last 10 years. That broad language, unlike any in recent history and reminiscent only of President Gerald Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon for, quote, all offenses against the United States, end quote, that the former president had or may have committed during his entire presidency. Trying to explain his decision to Americans, President Biden made a personal appeal. He said this, quote, "I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision," he said last night. Understand? Americans might, though they'll have to be forgiven for thinking that all of this was off the table.
Is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well,
I just said no. I just answered.
When would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear and I said no.
You said before that